I call this a burner. Does anybody else call them burners? A cigarette you put out and then light again later? Maybe some one that someone else put out. It's a burner. I definitely have to take a dump within the next 3 hours, which means it could come anywhere from between right now and 3 hours from now. So I hope I have time to do this video. It was kind of it wasn't a bad day, though. Well, it was like 75 degrees a couple days ago. Today it snowed. It's hard to say how many inches it snowed because in half the places it all just melted away, and then in the other places it built up anywhere from, well, up to 5 inches. How does a meteorologist deal with that? How do you talk about that? How do you say that? How do you enumerate that? Yeah, it was one of the reasons why it was iffy today is because, so I guess this is SuperPop 3, and this time I'll actually name it that. Is that, yeah, you'll have to watch my previous 2 videos, please. Because otherwise this one won't make any sense. And if you're not jiving with the first one, SuperPop, then don't bother watching it. Because I could see where it comes across as total horseshit. I can see that. Yet, you know, there's this spirit beneath trying to bring it up. The true. Especially in me. One of the reasons today was a bit funky is because of the whole thing I talked about in the first video I made there, where it's my last warning. Please, it might, if you're feeling iffy, this might hurt you, so just don't watch this. Watch my first one. And follow the instructions. It's just a word of advice. Last chance. Interacting with telepaths today, the problem hasn't gone away. In some sense, the problem has gotten worse. Again, this only makes sense if you've seen my previous videos. The problem I talked about in my first video, it's only gotten worse in a lot of senses. Less frequent, but the detonations are massive. And the only thing that can deal with it is forgiveness of myself. Coupled with the forgiveness, not even coupled, unified with the forgiveness of others. Those who have actively acted upon me as, essentially, archangels. Because archangels, God, the universe, synchronicity, acts upon us in peculiar ways. Because free will is allowed, and because accumulated free will is kind of like the anti-Leviathan, or the Leviathan, or it's a Leviathan of hatred. And if we look at the oceans, we see that so far as flesh goes, a Leviathan of hatred rules the world. That's why we're special. Because we possess a spirit that can see past that, but not only that, we possess a flesh. We possess not just a spirit, but a flesh that can see past that. A shark can't see past that, ever. Because their flesh will not allow it. Jacob, or not Jacob, the belly of the whale. Right. You can spend a time in the belly of a whale, so to speak, maybe the mouth. The great blue whale's mouth is so big that might seem like the belly. But at least symbolically, you can spend time in the belly of the whale. Who has lungs, who lives in the ocean but breathes air from the air, not air from the water. You can spend time there, but you will spend no time in the belly of the shark. As soon as those sets of teeth come at you, that's it. There ain't no time left. Yeah, I felt bad because I interacted with prophets today, and I had bad thoughts about them that weren't even necessarily mine. That parasite that Castaneda talked about, that parasite that Don Miguel Ruiz talked about, runs the show. And dealing with it is a terrible thing. It's a terrible, horrible suffering. To deal with this as it relates to this. Real suffering, real outward oppression, in a sense, is worse. Or for real is worse. I will say one of the benefits, not that I've dealt with the levels of oppression others have dealt with at all. But I've still, even in my narrow sense, dealt with a spectrum of oppression. Sometimes when I'm more oppressed, it makes me more real. And then I don't have the luxury. I don't have the luxury of parsing my thoughts. Sometimes when you're in the moment and it's ferocious, like physically, not just mentally, a lot of that mental fight is alleviated because we're dealing with something more present. But when things are good physically with us, it's not always the easiest thing to deal with that inner ferocity that often thrives when we're well. Sometimes when we're physically well, that inner terribleness thrives. And again, back to telepathy, back to SuperPop. That's one of the reasons why we can't handle the truth. I mentioned one way we can't handle the truth last time. Imagine that not just God, even among self-proclaimed believers, knowing that there is a consciousness that knows your every thought. And that's why, to an extent, the daily practice of prayer is very powerful, because if you truly believe there's a consciousness that knows everything about you and more about you than you know, then if we have a practice of daily prayer, which it's different for me now, but as a youngster, every night before I went to bed, for a decade and a half plus, my prayer, and it always was praying to the individual that I co-created, or uni-created, created with unity, so to speak. Knowing that I'm praying to something, someone who knows everything I think, so I can't lie. So anything that I feel bad about, I have to address every day. If I have that daily practice. If I have that daily practice of prayer to the highest, then I have to look at myself every day and look at everything that I did that I'm ashamed of and thought and address it. And that's a huge practice. It's big. And that's why I still feel bad, because in a sense you could say I stepped away from that mindset, and even when I had my best intentions, I made mistakes that I would have made anyway with my best intentions. Those are easier to deal with. Now, but they weren't then. And you could say that led me astray, where I didn't give a fuck. And once I didn't give a fuck, Then the things I did. They gave me an education that now I feel really bad about. But doing bad things is part of the process of learning forgiveness. And that's why some of the most powerful people in this creation, or in this accident, if that's your bend, some of the most powerful people don't say anything, don't do anything, are shut up, held off, hurt themselves, and kill themselves. That's why, because I talked about the telepaths and how powerful, and whatever omniscience is, or as close as we can come to that, whatever that is, they are. There's a lot of them, and it's uncomfortable interacting with them. It's uncomfortable and would make one who's even tuned in toward turning on very uncomfortable and suicidal. Because knowing that there's someone who knows everything about you, up here, in here, becomes very uncomfortable when we have either not so nice or nasty thoughts, depending on how you define nasty. But then the flip side of that, because that's one of the reasons we can't handle the truth. One of the other reasons why we can't handle the truth is imagine being given, so to speak, keys to the kingdom. Imagine becoming a telepath. Imagine becoming a Christ-like figure. Imagine knowing what everyone thinks all the time. Imagine looking at someone and knowing exactly what they think. Now imagine looking at someone and knowing what they think. And I'm just going to relate this back to my own self, especially back in the day, which is what I struggle with now. I don't have the same thoughts that I had as a youngster, but I can relate to them. And I recognize them. And when I see them, it's like I can't let it. It's very hard to let them go. I can't tell you how hard today was. It was hard. I saw a number of telepaths today. On a normal day, if I'm driving 40, 50 miles north and back, I'll stop at anywhere between 3 and 8 stores, to and from work, sometimes at lunch. You know, at work on a given day, yeah, some days I'm by myself, some days I see one person. Today at work, I saw 6 people. But I might see 20 people in a given day just coming and going. Some jobs are real busy, you know. But again, just driving back and forth, going to the grocery store, getting gas, going to the paint store, whatever. So there's a lot of opportunities for interaction. And that's where they find us. Anyway. And of course, again, see my previous videos, but like shapeshifters. Not in the David Icke way, but shapeshifters nonetheless. You may interact with a prophet, with a clairvoyant, with a telepath today that you knew 15 years ago. They may look different, they may look exactly the same. They may be 100 pounds heavier, they may be 50 pounds lighter, they may be younger or older. Anyway. If you're obsessing about what you don't want to say, you're going to say it. And what I want in my heart of hearts more than anything is this connection. I want to see beyond the pale. I want to see beyond the flesh. I want to see beyond the surface. But I've been very carnal in my life. My carnality these days is mostly targeted toward booze and food, smokes. But it also used to be for the women folk, you know? Oh, God, am I going to say it? See, that's the thing. All right. All right. Fuck it. That's the thing. So you look at someone, if you're carnal, if you're lusty, right? I've not shed lust. I'm battling it. I'm dealing with it. I'm at war with it. It's a brutal fucking war. Brutal. St. Jerome alludes to it. I guess I'm going to expand on it. If St. Jerome did it, give me a fucking break, right? You know, Martin Luther couldn't have done what he did if St. Jerome didn't do what he did. Nor St. Augustine, etc. If you're being carnal or lusty, or even if you're not being carnal or lusty, but you're afraid to be, right? In any way, you're going to look at them and you're going to put them on the scale. And the scale goes like the top of the scale is I want to fuck you. For me, if it's a woman, some people are bi, some people are gay, whatever. You know, it's not like I'm stepping outside of the bounds of God, right? Every child imbued with that divine spark is an act of love, lust, what's that? Agape love, or, like every, right? Fucking is huge. Sex is huge. And if you're trying to be ascetic, and I'm not even saying that's the right way, but I will say it's a technology of love, the same way that Foucault says that, or so I've heard it said. I don't want to quote him when I've only heard. I've heard it said, Foucault says, that homosexuality is a technology of love. Whether you're into his camp or not, he certainly has a cogent corpus. I think a strict interpretation of his corpus is the definite. I think what he's defining is the prevalent accumulated thought form of the era of free will. That, at least not explicitly, but most likely, man, if you perfectly describe the enemy, you can't do that without knowing where the center is and where the axis is. I don't think. And not only that, I have a hunch. Especially because there's too much value there. But to read him naively or at face value, same with Nietzsche. Everybody calls him like death is God, atheist, Nazi shit. Couldn't be more true. Couldn't be more untrue. Nietzsche is the fucking... He ain't even the left hand of God, in a certain respect. In his time, he was the right hand of God. Right hand of the king. Anyway. When you're looking at someone 100, 1,000, 10,000 years old, they might look old, they might look young, they might look ugly, they might look sexy. They might have good skin, they might have bad skin. As soon as you make a judgment upon them, they can look like anything. Saints. I'm talking disciples. I'm talking Jesus himself, right? Everyone knows he was a shapeshifter. Saint Raphael. But see, this is the thing. When you're just reading about it and it's like, oh, the mysteries, it sounds great. And it is. I'm pretty sure it is a great thing. But once you know people can read your mind and you're coming at them from the world, it's like, oh, like you're a teacher, saint, sage, and if you see two of them together, I relate to women. I'm sorry. I have to say it. Despite the fact that I'm some cheesy old guy, old beyond my years, and unfortunately more than one way. It's something I have to speak to. And I don't want to condemn it at all. Because there's something about like the health and the vitality. Alright, I'm just going to take it down. There's something about the health and the vitality. The exercise. All that. But there's also something about the carelessness. Dealing with souls. soul, sun, fire, that fire from within. And all of a sudden, as God making something, whether wanting to or not, focusing on that flesh, focusing on that flesh that does that thing for a second, and then it's like nachos or pizza. Hey. Anyway, looking at a prophet and recognizing, like, they present themselves to you the way they want you to see them, even if they want you to have the type of reaction I'm explaining. You have to be strong enough to deal with it and to work through it for them to do it. They won't do that to you if you can't deal with it. They will present themselves straight up, and you, even if that means you won't know it's them. But they're always peering through that river of time. So we talk about metaphorically the river of time, and we give it all this stuff, right? But if we're dealing with it in a real way, speaking of the fish and the fisherman, you put me in a river, I ain't gonna catch shit. Give me a bobber and a worm, and good luck. You know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But a pro, they're just gonna be like, in the boat, in the boat, or they're gonna lay a charge, or they'll just start jumping in like a miracle. Or we'll be told to cast our net to which side. Speaking of the river of time. But the archangel, disciple, apostle, resurrected white witches. There's two types of black witches. One, selfish kind, flat out selfish, prana eating. I won't say soul. I still, maybe, well, I do. I have a lot of work to do between soul and spirit. Often those terms are used interchangeably. I'll say soul stealing, spirit eating. There's that. I got a GPS reroute. I gotta get to where I'm getting. Reroute. So that's part of the reason why I drink and smoke so much. Is because I'm self-medicating 100%. I know I am. I absolutely know I am. And that's the thing too, is they talk about like the 12 steps. That works great before you know telepaths are real. Once you know telepaths are real, yeah, that whole 12-step program don't work no more. because the intensity shoots up, even if you're just like plain old, you know, living in a boring house. My these days gray-ish walls don't speak to the colors broiling within. You know? I'm gonna say it like, right. I'm not. I don't want to be this guy, but I've been this guy. I know this guy. I'm not this guy, and that's part of the struggle and the war that we're fighting. Like, the part of the war you have to fight is convincing yourself you're not that thing that you know you are. Or rather, you're not that thing that you've known about the self you've been given, but not by the Most High. By the accumulated error of free will, you've been given another self. I've been given another self. But when I look back to the happiness that I vaguely remember of my childhood, before I was lucky enough to know a good deal of love when I was younger, thank God. Without it, I'd be completely lost now. I would. That's not the story for everybody, but that's definitely mine. The telepath, prophet, archangel, resurrected white wizards present themselves to us as they want us to see them, to teach us something about ourselves. A white witch, so to speak, can present herself to me as either the most drop-dead, gorgeous, lustful, beautiful, intimate individual ever conceived, if she wants. And if she wants, she can present herself to me as the most decrepit, nasty, awful, evil, or even very nice, but very uncomely person she wants. So when I know that I'm trying to aspire to the technology of asceticism, which isn't an eternal technology. Asceticism is a higher mind, true asceticism, not the appearance of it, but true asceticism is a technology of, it's a technology that combats the accumulated error of erroneous free will. The accumulated error, the centralized accumulated error of erroneous free will, is a magnificent force which we may as well refer to as Satan. It's a useful metaphor, but it is a metaphor that relies upon an individual, even if that is an individual of accumulated individuals, as a Leviathan-like form. Anyway, you look at someone You recognize your younger self. I see you. I want to hump you. There's 25,000 different nasty things I wanted, like, do to you. No, not violent, in my imagination it would be conciliatory, reciprocal, right? I recognize there's no reciprocity possible with this crust, right? That's part of the enigma of what I'm dealing with. But knowing that shape-shifted form, matter washing over form, is the same form you saw, or let's put it this way, since I talked about like an ugly I talked about the thing like I want to hump you, right? So beautiful, statuesque. Pick your favorite shape. Or if you're like me, you like every shape, right? Or it depends on the combination of qualities. Knowing that's the same individual that met you 10 years in the past as wrinkled up, fuzzy, skanky, toothless, nasty, old fogey, smelly, and thinking like, ugh. But then also recognizing that the thing you're thinking is like, I don't want to fuck you. I know it's fucked up. It's completely fucked up, but I'm not so unlike the world of this day or any day. Because we all talk about the Bible and shit, man. Back in that time, folk were sacrificing their own children. And that's one thing about Abraham, where like God told him to kill his kid. If you take that as a one-off, as the only example of that in the Bible, like there's a lot of bad shit you can say about that. He was going to do it because God said, right? And that's one of the arguments against the Bible. However, in that rough, general time period, not too far off, it's confirmed, not too far off, because we set all, the Canaanites versus the Egyptians versus the, the Israelites versus the, Ethiopians versus the this, the that, the whatever, but it's a tight spot, It's a small place where there's a lot going on. It really is, like from the, it's a small place where a lot's happening. And not too far off, it was commonplace for child sacrifice. So if we just look at Abraham as like, kill your son, okay, then we miss the point. Or we might. Maybe we don't. Maybe that is the point. But it's worth considering that Abraham, even if it's not referenced in the Bible, right? Look at your yearbook from whatever year, however many years you have yearbooks for. Look at your yearbook. Was that the whole year for everybody in the yearbook? That's the Bible. The Bible's a yearbook. Yeah, there's this, there's that, there's this, there's that. Was that the year for everybody in the yearbook? No. So there's a lot of shit going on that don't get put down, right? So it's possible that the one we call Abraham lived in this context of sacrifice of children. Either explicit, implicit, covered, talked about, or not. Right? I mean, in my lifetime, especially girls in the East have been killed because they were born girls, burnt alive. Some burnt alive and not dying, just like Agnes. How many Agneses do we have amongst us? These are our living symbols. And it ain't no fucking joke, man. That's why people shit on Hillary Clinton, you know, but she went to Beijing back in the day when it was a lot more dangerous to do so. And said what no one else was saying. And people still aren't saying today. They shit on her for saying it. And then people talk about, like, the Clintons, this, that, whatever, and all the conspiracy, you know. The President of the United States is the murderer in chief. The CIA, all this. They're not just the president of me, Podung, Jeff Housepainter, buy my lunch at the convenience store, dipshit. They're the president of, you know, alien shit. Mobs. You know. Every crazy thing we could conceive of. They're, for all practical purposes, at the tippity top. We live in a murderous, butcherous, barbaric world still. There's a lot of stability, thank God. So that perhaps we can find the peace that the carps found. The ones that turned into goldfish and could see ultraviolet and ultra-red light. We are in an aquarium, yes. We're in a bubble, yes. But the bubble is meant to give some of us. We would hope it's all of us. Might not be that way. But we would hope and pray it's all of us. That this, in the moment, we're on a ship. All of society is a ship that's constantly, it's sinking. And the water's just continuously being hoed out. And the prophets and the clairvoyants, they're doing most of the work. They work faster, harder, stronger, double, triple shifts. And that's the truth of it. People talk about the elite and how they live these cozy lives with billionaire, this, that, whatever. Those aren't the real elites. The real elites have 3 8-hour shifts. They'll work one at a convenience store, one at an international bank, and one in the triage. And they'll just take one hat off, and put another hat on. And knowing that they do that, it's hard to look at them and just be visceral. Yet I've yet to shed my viscerality. Yet, viscerality cannot be shed. It's not what we have to lose, in a sense, is what we see more of. We are capable of seeing a certain spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum of light. When we see more, we see more. And for some reason, despite the parasite that infects my thought form, they see a beauty within me. They're trying like heck to help me. And again, I can't remember if I mentioned this already. No, I don't think I did. This is the other thing about telepathy and why we can't handle the truth and why we're actually kept dulled down. There's a couple reasons we get dulled down and that we can't handle the truth. I'll talk about the second one first. Imagine being able to read people's minds. And imagine someone looking at you and saying, imagine someone looking at you and being like, I want to fuck you. And imagine someone looking at you and saying, I don't ever want to fuck you. Like, imagine someone looking at you and being like, wow, you look great. And imagine someone looking at you and being like, man, you the ugliest motherfucker ever. And imagine someone ugly saying, wow, you're super great. And imagine someone beautiful saying, wow, you're super great. And imagine someone ugly saying, ooh, you nasty. And imagine someone ugly being like, you know, like, if you're not perfected in will, in morality, you cannot deal with that. Because if you could read someone's mind and someone you wanted to get with, who needed your help spiritually, but you were just focusing on the surface, imagine someone who physically you wanted to get with, but yet, being a telepath, you could see all their inner demons. But you focused on, I want to get with you. And if that's all you looked at, you'd be like, I don't care how crazy this bitch is, I'm getting. You'd take someone spiritually hurt, if they were. Maybe there's someone who's like spiritually whatever, and then maybe that's a different story. But I would say for the most part, it's not. One of the reasons we can't handle the truth is because we can't handle the viciousness of our own thoughts. One of the reasons we're not given the truth is because we can't deal with the responsibility of loving another despite the viciousness of their thoughts. And that's why forgiveness is so important magically. It's not just some foo-foo theoretical thing. Like, when I say magically, what I mean is like down to the core of existence. How important forgiveness is. And how tied it is to forgiving ourselves, to forgiving others. And you know, we can't handle the truth, but we must. In my lifetime, girls were burnt. Perhaps still today. And it's difficult to be lustful over women, knowing that girls who would be women are destroyed before they ever have the chance to become strong in their selfhood, never mind their womanhood, just in their selfhood, who they are. And these days, the only women who are really given a chance are the alpha women. Right? We talk about the glass ceiling. Not every woman who embodies her selfhood can breach that glass ceiling. Seems as though Kamala Harris will be the one who symbolically breaches the political glass ceiling, right? And there's all kinds of things that people say about her, but you can say she has the capacity for like a bubbly, typical, like a typical bubbly, friendly, nice female, right? But we also know she's a killer, right? So to speak. And she certainly also possesses that personality. But what you can definitely say about her is she's she's still kind of an alpha female, right? A soft one. She's a soft alpha female. Two of the biggest cats I ever met were females. And they had the biggest jowls and double paws. Big hands and big mouths, you know. One of them is my folks' cat. My parents, they have a cat, Katie. She's very timid. She's never let me touch her, ever. And when I tried to be friendly with her, she bit me. And I'm really just dealing with surface level stuff here and perceptions and history. I'm not dealing with the real deal, and the real deal is there are angelic, apostle, white witch, sorcerer, enlightened, whatever, like whatever title you could give to anyone. Those women have existed for a long time. And they still, they need our help. And they don't just need our help to help them. The women I'm talking about, they don't need my help to help them. They need my help to help those who they help. And who they help is the entire fucking world. So that goes back to my first video. I don't know how to perform surgery. Like, there's so many things I don't know. But I can give comfort and I can speak the truth as I know it. And that's the help that they need from us. From you. To give comfort to forgive ourselves and others. It sounds like a passive act, but forgiveness is an active act. Because to forgive all the way down, it takes a lot of work. I'm not there yet, but I've made inroads. Thank God. I've not won the war. So to say progress or whatever, well, progress can regress. So it's an active job. But to just give that comfort. That keeps people above ground a little longer. Just to be given that. It's okay. It sounds like a small thing. It's huge. Huge. It's okay. Huge. It's not the beginning and the end of it. But sometimes, when someone's on the mat, you throw the bucket of cold water on them. Get up! And sometimes that's the right thing. But sometimes healing is, it's okay. And we can do that. So I hope to learn how to do at least that much. And the big thing about that is that if more of us do that, one, it alleviates the burden of the telepaths, because the telepaths can do anything. And one of the things the telepaths do, even though they can do anything, is they slip in every now and then and give us an, whether we know it or not, it's okay. And that's what people need more than anything. Collectively. And if we can do that, we can really lighten the load. For the true healers. And in that way, maybe they'll have a little more time to teach us collectively to be true healers. I hope you're having a good day, and if you're not, this too shall pass. Stick around. See what tomorrow brings. Please. For us.